I wonder what webinar software to use. What's up guys, Jason here. Welcome to episode 20 of Building an Online Business from Scratch, where I'm walking you through A to Z of building an online business and consulting practice completely from scratch with everyone watching. So if you're new to the channel, be sure to subscribe because I'm going from zero to hopefully hero in building this sales funnel. So in today's episode, I want to talk about 5 key factors to consider when choosing your webinar software. And specifically, I'm going to be talking about Webinar Jam, Everwebinar, and Stealth Webinar. So I'm going to be kind of combining Webinar Jam and Everwebinar since they're from the same company and a lot of their functionalities are the same. They just have a couple of key distinct differences. So I'll get into that in a second as well. So what are those 5 things to look for in webinar software? Design, functionality, versatility, usability, and price. So we're going to go over each one of those and what to look for when figuring out what webinar software to use. And then of course, I'm going to be specifically talking about Webinar Jam, Everwebinar, and Stealth Seminar. So number 1 is design. And for me, after going through and looking at all the different softwares, design became what I think is the most important factor to look at. And when I say design, I mean design for your attendees. What is your attendees' user experience? Because you remember, webinars are all about connecting with your prospects and customers, building rapport, and then making sales, right? So it's hard to make sales if you are on a really ugly page. There's just no way around it. I think that the design of the platform reflects on you as the entrepreneur, business owner, and it reflects on your brand. Now, I know there's a lot of information out there about, those old style, super long, ugly sales letters that convert like crazy. And there's still places for those. But I think with webinars, we're also thinking about branding. It's not just about making the sale. We're not just doing a sales letter or a video sales letter here. The time for those kind of ugly, very sales-centric pieces in your funnel can come later. Here, we are not only selling, but we're also building a brand and we're building rapport and we're building a relationship. And for that reason, I think design is really key in terms of what do these platforms look like when your prospects are showing up and attending your webinars. Now, if we were talking about a sales page, if we were talking about a squeeze page that you're doing an email drop to, or if you're talking about a video sales letter, then I wouldn't care so much about design because those things you're in that sales process, you're on that 1 or 2 yard line. You're almost pushing them over the edge. And so you'd use those types of things after the webinar. But I just wanted to point out that distinction between, because there's a lot of information out there with copywriters saying, we do the ugliest pages in the world and they convert like crazy. So that's why I think design is so key. So for me, that wound up being the biggest factor in choosing the platform that I went with, which of course I will tell you at the end. And I've got a little screenshot here for you. One is of Stealth Seminar. So this is what the page looks like. And then the other one is of Webinar Jam, Everwebinar. And you can kind of tell the difference. One looks a little more modern and clean. I think that really matters and makes a difference because I know as an attendee, when I first went to a webinar that was put on by the Stealth Webinar software, I was a little jarred at first because of the way it looked. It looked a little more like Web 1.0 as opposed to 2.0. But hey, when they update their inference, I'll definitely do another comparison video. Anyway, enough on design. Let's jump into number 2, which is functionality. And functionality is, on the surface, there's a lot to look at, right? But what I want to do is just focus in on the actual webinar functionalities of these platforms. They offer a lot of other bells and whistles that kind of pull you in, like some have landing pages, some have, advanced email integration, all that stuff. All that stuff is great, but first we want to make sure that that core of what the software is supposed to do, which is give you webinars, is solid. So the first question you want to ask with functionality is hosted. How is it hosted? Are you throwing videos up on Vimeo and YouTube and then they're pulling from there? Are you uploading the video directly and they're hosting it for you? I know this is a big thing with Stealth Seminar. A big part of their key selling point is that they'll upload your video, or you'll upload their video to you. They won't upload it for you. But once you upload it, they'll encode it in multiple different formats so it works best across all devices. Now, from a technical standpoint, I'm not a tech person, so I don't know how much that matters, but I have seen some things that say, it does matter how the video is encoded. If you just have a YouTube video that you're trying to embed on a page and treat it like a webinar, it may or may not work depending upon the device. So that's definitely something to look into as well. How are these things hosted? And then if you're looking at live webinars, are they running their servers? Is it being done through Google Hangouts? You definitely want to pay attention to that, because Google Hangouts is a really finicky thing. And actually, Google Hangouts is free. So if you're paying for something that only uses Google Hangouts, you might want to take that into account when you're looking at the price tag, which is going to be number 5. So anyway, that does it for functionality. Then we come to versatility. And this is, on a personal, this is where I just got screwed because I did not do my research. And because I didn't do my research correctly and properly understand the versatility of these platforms, I had to redo 5 or 6 of my pre-webinar videos, and including several ads that I was going to run on Facebook. I was all ready to go live, and then I realized, oh no, I have all these videos that are saying something that isn't true because I misunderstood what was offered by the webinar platform. So I'll get into that in a little bit. But essentially, versatility is looking at what types of webinars you can run. I did a previous episode on live webinars, hybrid webinars, and then automated webinars. So I'll link to that in the description over on YouTube. But here you just want to know, what type of webinars do you want to do? Do you want to do them live? Do you want to do a hybrid? And there's different types of hybrids. There's hybrids where, and this is where I really got messed up because I didn't understand the different types of hybrids. So make sure you know exactly what kind of webinar you're going to do before you start recording and stuff. That's just one of the mistakes I made. And getting sidetracked, once you have hybrid, so you have hybrid number 1, which is you have a pre-recorded part and then you come on in the beginning or the end. Then hybrid number 2 is it's kind of half and half. You're playing and then you're live. You're playing and then you're live. And then there's the hybrid that I didn't understand, which is you're there, the whole thing is pre-recorded, but you only get to type in the background. And that's something Everwebinar allows you to do. Stealth Seminar, on the other hand, allows you to do actual true hybrid webinars. I think an only true hybrid webinar, I mean, it's nice you can chat in the background, but when I read hybrid webinar, I always think, I assumed, wrongly so, but I assumed that would mean that you would be able to come on at certain parts live. So my original plan with the sales funnel, which is what I've been talking about here, is I wanted to do a pre-recorded section and then come on in the end and answer questions, because that just seems to be the quickest way for me to learn about my audience, right? Because I'm doing this for the first time. And then also get a good sense of what the questions are that are being asked. So eventually in the future, when I automate it, I have the proper FAQ. Well, unfortunately, long story short, turns out I'm not going to be able to do that. I really, really wanted to be able to have these automated webinars and automated hybrid webinars that come on, and then I could just come on the end and answer questions. Turns out that's a lot harder than I thought. And I actually found out Stealth Seminar would allow me to do this, because with Everwebinar, and with hybrid webinars, and I'm saving you some research and headache because I actually had to go talk to both support at both companies to actually figure this out. So with Everwebinar, you can have a pre-recorded webinar, and then you can chat in the background. You don't have the ability to come on live. With Webinar Jam, however, you can show up and hit the start button, and it'll play the recorded thing, and then you can come on at the end and be live. That's Pretty good. Okay, so no problem there. And then Stealth Seminar allows you to do the same. However, with Stealth Seminar, the webinar will autoplay. So you can have it pre-recorded webinar, it'll autoplay, and then you show up the last 30 minutes or last 40 minutes and say, hey, now we're live. Now I am here to answer your questions live, which sounds all fine and dandy. But here's the issue. And this is something I know I'm going into great detail here, but I want to save you the headache because I lost a lot of time fixing those videos because I misunderstood this. With Webinar Jam, with Everwebinar and Stealth Seminar, you have the ability to say, I want to run the webinar every Monday, Thursday, Friday, 5 p.m., 12 p.m. Okay, done. And then it'll auto schedule that. And then on the registration, when people show up to your landing page, the software will automatically enter in those new dates. And that's key with automation. However, Webinar Jam will not do that. So if I were to schedule a webinar for every Monday, or I want it Monday, Thursday, Friday, I'm going to have to set up a separate reoccurring live webinar in each one of those times. And then guess what? When I drive traffic to a landing page, I don't have the option of telling them they can go to webinar 1, 2, or 3 because each day is considered a different webinar. So now I can't put them all on the same registration. And on top of that, when they go click to choose which one, they're going to get a list of all of them. So if I say I want to run a webinar every Monday between now and the end of the year, they're going to see the dates for all of those times. And that's just going to kill conversions, right? So I just wanted to point that out. Hopefully that made a little bit of sense. If you're not doing hybrid webinars or you're not trying to go that extra mile and be on live, then you can just ignore that whole part. But versatility is really key in understanding how do the hybrid webinars work and how does the scheduling work? Because the scheduling is key. And then on top of that, how does it integrate with what I'm using? For example, Stealth Seminar and ClickFunnels don't talk to each other very well. Not as well as Webinar Jam and ClickFunnels do. So I actually bounce back and forth. Originally, I was with Webinar Jam. Then I stopped because of the reason I just told you about all the dates showing up. I was like, okay, well, I guess I'm going to go back to Stealth Seminar. But then looking at how they would integrate with ClickFunnels, I was like, man, that's a lot more work than I want. So then I went back to Webinar Jam. So we're going back and forth. I'll get to the final conclusion in a little bit, but that does it for versatility. Just you really, really, really want to take the time to figure out what kind of webinars you want to do and how their scheduling works with whatever software you're looking at, because that scheduling is key. You don't want to have to go in and schedule your webinar every single day because you need that landing page to update automatically, because you want to offer multiple times, because when you're running your ads, we need to be able to know if people aren't signing up because the copy stinks, because the image stinks, or because of the time, or you're not offering enough time. So you need that process to be automated so you can spend all your time on the other parts of your sales funnel that actually really matter, which is the ads and then the webinar itself. You don't want to do all the split testing and then find out, well, if I just offered another time of my webinar, for my webinar had been at 7 o'clock instead of 6 o'clock, then I would have doubled my opt-ins or conversions on the webinar, whatever it may be. So versatility is key. So number 4, going to speed up here, is ease of use. And that's just how easy is it to manage things during the webinar. I'm all for automation, setup, great complicated stuff. Both companies have great support. They answer really quickly. So when you're trying to set all this stuff up, it's great. But when you're live, that's when you don't have time to wait the 12 or 24 hours for support. You don't want to try to do a webinar when you're all flustered because the software isn't working. And I've seen this a lot with presenters. And I feel for them. I really do, because what could go wrong, whatever you think could go wrong on a webinar won't, but the one thing you didn't think about will go wrong, right? So that's kind of all the way it seems to happen live. So definitely want to pay attention to how easy is it to start the webinar in the first place? How easy is it to bring other people on if you want live interactions? How easy is it to respond? How easy is it to pause? And that's one of those things you might wind up having to actually just test out the software for a while. Of course, I'm not at that part yet because I'm just about to purchase the software, but definitely want to look at the dashboards, the user inference, how it looks while you're doing the webinar. You can figure things out behind the scenes before or after the webinar starts. But during the webinar, you want things to be as smooth as possible so you can just focus on the presentation and your prospects and customers who are there to learn something from you. And then finally, number 5, we have price. And it just doesn't make good business sense. And this is something all of us entrepreneurs and people just getting started have to look at. How much is this going to set me back? So what I like to do is I always look at entrepreneurship as you hope and work for the best, but you plan for the worst. And what this means is, particularly with webinar software, if you have, 2 options. Option A is the $60 software. Option B is, I'm just making up price points, the $1,200 software. You've got this big difference. Well, if you can if you can get 80% of what you need with the $60 software, I would say do this, because you want to ask this question when you're purchasing webinar software, or almost anything for that matter, when you're just starting out pre-revenue. I guess the game changes a little bit once you're revenue, but I'm not there yet. So I'm just going to talk about pre-revenue. So when you're pre-revenue, you want to look at your 2 options and say, which one am I going to be happiest with if I don't make a single sale in the next 6 months? And yeah, that's pessimistic. But remember, us entrepreneurs, self-employed and freelancers, we're shooting for the moon. Doesn't mean we might have to land on a star before we get there. And sorry, that's kind of corny. That just kind of came out. Anyway, I'll keep going. The point is this: when you're in that, in 6 months, you will have either been really successful, in which case you can just go and buy the software because you made money, or it didn't work out for whatever reason. Life got in the way, things came up, Facebook or Google was mean to you with an ad, so you lost traffic for a week or 2. Whatever the reason it may be, is you'll be a lot better off the less of a hole you're in. Because I know this from personal experience. I did this with email software, where I had a coach and he was just amping me up, and he was like, you know what? Yeah. What do you think your business is going to be like in 6 months? And I'm sorry guys, this is just a terrible piece of advice. It's just completely out of reality. And he said, don't buy the software for where your business is now. By the way, I wasn't making any money at the time. He said, buy your software for where you think your business is going to be in 6 months. Well, we all think we're going to be really better off in 6 months. And when we look at the decision like that, of course we're going to go for the more expensive, fancy software. And of course, 6 months came and went, and I went broke and bust in that business a lot quicker because I was paying so much money for this software when I had like 5 subscribers. I wasn't getting any subscribers. I was solving a problem I didn't have yet. And so that's why I think price should be right behind design. I'd say you look at design and then look at price. All those other things are really important in terms of figuring out your business model. But in terms of just making a quick snap decision, does it look good, and can I afford it? Is it going to put me in a giant hole where in 6 months, if I made no sales, I'd just be crying home to family and friends saying, oh, I shouldn't have bought this really expensive software. So anyway, that's price. Does it make good business sense? So in conclusion, which one do I recommend? Webinar Jam, Everwebinar, or Stealth Seminar? And I recommend Everwebinar at this point. And here's why. With the scheduling, I personally think you just need something that automatically schedules, will automatically update your landing page so you can focus on delivering the webinars and focus on the front end of your funnel, which is the advertising and the split testing. If you have to go in every day or have someone else go in every day, changing the dates, adding a new webinar, I think it's just an extra layer that just doesn't make up or does not make up for the fact that on the automated side, it wouldn't necessarily be live. So with Everwebinar, I went with them because comparing Everwebinar versus Stealth Seminar, the design was just, it was almost just not a competition between the design. And with Stealth Seminar, their hybrid webinars, they actually use Google Hangouts, and I didn't want to go through that hassle or have those connectivity issues because I use Google Hangouts for a lot of my coaching and consulting students. And that works because, we already have a relationship. So when things go bad, which they always do, I'm not losing sales. The person on the other end, I'm there where we've already developed that relationship. So it's okay. And then finally with Everwebinar, it integrated better with ClickFunnels, which is what I was using. So thank you for watching. I hope you found this video informative and actionable. If you got some value out of it, please go ahead and hit that like button. And then if you're on YouTube, subscribe for more business building and marketing tactics and strategies, just like the ones covered in this video. Again, I'm Jason, and I'm going from A to Z, how to build an online business from scratch. I'm just opening the curtain, showing you everything I'm trying and learning to make this whole online business thing work and hopefully have some success at the end of it. So I invite you to subscribe, join this crazy journey. Comment below if you're an entrepreneur or freelancer, a small business owner who's trying to either start or grow their business online or just take things to the next level. Maybe you already have some success and you want to share with the rest of us, some lessons learned. That's part of this video series and the community that I'm building around it. So thank you again for watching. Until next week's episode, keep building the business you love. Take care.